There was this study that came out just a few days ago that showed that transgenderism might actually be on the decline. So I've got this tweet pulled up here. And
Oh, I got some people mad at me over showing that chart. They were like, "Ugh, it's probably just because you people are oppressing them so they
That's
can't
always it.
come out now."
Oh, that's always why 30% of the population wasn't trans since the beginning of the time, is because
Right.
all of us were so
The
mean.
rest of us
So
are
Benjamin
just
Ryan says,
suppressing them.
news, trans and non-binary identities are indeed in free fall in college age Americans. So again, high school and college age is kind of where we saw the height of this taking place. Typically it wasn't grandma claiming to be non-binary. So that's interesting. Professor Jean Twenge found new survey data that supports much of the disputed claim from last week. Twenge also found data including the trans identity increased exponentially by birth year until those born after about 2002. These identities have plummeted in those born more recently, who are now 20 to 23 years old. The problem with Kaufman's data is it didn't distinguish between trans and non-binary identities. The data that Twenge found does. The decline in such identities in younger Americans raises important questions about the future of the field of pediatric gender medicine and the question of whether these identities are at least partially driven by social influences as opposed to immutable inborn traits. Yeah, I always love how that's like a weird question, right? Hey, do we think all of this massive celebration of trans ideology might have influenced younger people going through, I don't know, puberty and other confusing times in their life to adopt personalities not based off of any sort of immutable characteristics within their own biology, but perhaps off of social pressures?
Probably just social prepper. The thing is that these very same people that think social pressures and influences have nothing to do with this are also the same people that were like, "Hey, tobacco company, you can't use cartoons because that might influence children to
Right.
smoke
Yeah.
stuff. You can't make stuff look like candy that is actually a drug of some sort." And yet they seem to think that all this rainbow flag mumbo jumbo
Yeah.
isn't influencing these children with all their cute little bright colors and furry animals.
Yeah. So go ahead and explain what's going on right here, Christian.
so this chart shows the percentage of 18 to 22-year-olds.
Mhm.
So basically, college age Americans that identified as transgender or non-binary from 2021 to 2024. So arguably immediately after the peak of the Great Awakening, which is what we're going to be debating on this podcast,
Yeah.
right? So this chart shows, and I'm going to say this for the audio listeners here, the transgender number, again, this is 18 to 22-year-olds, goes from about, just over 5.5 to 6% by 2022, and then it plummets from there.
Now it's
And
under 3.5.
yeah, now it's almost at 3.
Yeah.
The number of non-binary goes from about 3. It peaks in 2023, whereas transgenderism peaks in 2022. It goes from about 3 to 5%, and then it plummets actually below where it started, all the way down to 2%.
So here's a question real quick. You see transgender so non-binary is going up at the same time that transgender is plummeting. And
I
then,
think that's
and then-
actually just a lagging indicator.
well, then wait a second. And then both of them plummet. So here's my question. You think that's just a lagging indicator? You know what I think could possibly explain kind of the non-binary blowing up is that to say that you're transgender requires a lot more theoretically.
Oh, so you think the other one has a lot less buy-in, so it's like a secondary stage?
What do I
They
have?
haven't cut off their organs yet.
Well, and even then, like if I say I'm transgender, but I change nothing about my physical appearance or mannerisms or anything else,
Yeah.
people are going to look at it as like, well, do you really mean that? If you say you're non-binary, what exactly do you have to change?
Oh, I'll tell you exactly what you change when you're non-binary. Non-binary, and case in point, I can't put it on the screen, but Demi Lovato.
Yeah.
When she packed on like 30 pounds and didn't feel as feminine anymore, she was like, "I'm non-binary." And then as soon as she lost the weight, she was like, "Actually, I'm a woman again." So basically, non-binary means you're fat.
Oh my God.
I mean, Tina's not that far off. It's a
Or ugly. It could be ugly too.
I get what you mean, Nick, about it being, it requires far less buy-in.
Yeah.
This is not the only thing that we're going to go through here.
All right,
There's
what's
some
the
more.
next one?
So this is percent of US adults identifying as transgender or non-binary by the year that they were born. So understand, this chart is not over time.
Yeah, yeah.
This chart is showing somebody born
So
in, say, 1994, the year that I was born. It's 1.5% for both, whereas it peaks in 2002 for transgenderism as 5, almost 6%. That's a huge
so from
surge.
94 from 94 to 2002, it increases exponentially, like
Yeah.
massively. And you actually see the same thing with the the non-binary there with those years. So basically, if you were born between 1999 and 2004, that was kind of peak. I'm trans, I'm non-binary, and then anything after 2004, and especially after 2005, it's like in free fall.
That's like under 20-year-olds or under
Yeah.
21-year-olds.
It's like going back to your like mid 90s numbers.
Well, I feel
So the
like
argument is that this is a fad right here, that
Yeah.
this corresponds with basically the Great Awakening.
Yeah.
it's a fad, but then I think the reason why it's being rejected beyond what it was to begin with
Yeah.
is because there was an element of oppression. People rebel against things they feel like they're forced to do.
Mhm.
And there was a point where societally you were getting forced into one of these camps. And if you weren't forced to be this, you dang well better be an ally. And if you're not an ally, if you're not an ally and you're not trans or non-binary, then you're the enemy. And people get to where they're like, I don't care.
Well,
I'm gonna rebel because that's just the right age to be rebelling against the powers that be.
So I think when you look at this, so 1998, right, the year we graduated high school, is the year where this shot up. So people born in 1998, those are the people that you see this massive increase in people identifying as non-binary or transgender. That's where you start to see this take place. Here's the thing. So you got to think about what age group they were during the Great Awakening. So they're in high school, they're in college. That's what's going on. I was speaking to a women's group, and they were talking about how ridiculous it was that there was a high school in California where it was something like 25% of the female student body identified as transgender, non-binary, or queer. And as we're talking about it, and the area in California was I think it was more of a predominantly white area, if I remember correctly. Don't quote me on that. And I said, well, I'm actually surprised it's not higher. And they were kind of shocked at that. I said, well, I want you to think about this for a second. You're a young, impressionable girl in a in an environment where your social connections matter significantly. And you're already predisposed to, not necessarily want to cause harm or experience harm. And you're at the height of intersectional politics. Well, what was intersectional politics? Intersectional was, okay, we're now essentially assigning grievance points based off the various characteristics that you have for which we assign pity, right? So if you were black, you got so many intersectional points. But if you're a black woman, you got more intersectional points. If you were a black trans woman, you're like the tippy top of the intersectional pyramid. All right. Well, where are you if you're a white girl?
You're near the bottom.
You are just above white heterosexual men, which is the worst thing you can be in intersectional politics.
Hence non-binary.
But the moment you claim non-binary, you don't jump up one level. You jump up multiple levels. Now, all of a sudden, you go from being part of the problem to being bold and brave and beautiful, and you need to be listened to. And so if you're trying to navigate a high stress social environment at the time that all this nonsense is happening, and that all of your authority figures within the school system are pushing this, at the same time that Hollywood is also pushing it, this is an easy choice, guys. This is an easy choice. And I think it bears out in the numbers. But to Tina's point, you get to a point where the pressure becomes so extreme that people go beyond the I'm going to accept it or I'm going to adopt it, and they go to I'm going to rebel against it. And the more the rebellion becomes common, the more people reject it. Like I just spoke at a Turning Point high school event yesterday.
In
in
Charlottesville.
Albemarle County, which is where Charlottesville is located. Charlottesville is one of the most liberal places in Virginia. Albemarle County is a very liberal place. This is the largest high school turning point club in Virginia and the second largest in the country. There was probably 180 students that were there. So I spoke and I took questions. And a young girl comes up in front of 180 students and goes, I've started multiple petitions to try to keep boys out of our girls' bathroom. What more should we do in order to make this happen? And I'm thinking to myself, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I gave, I answered her question, but I also thanked her for doing it. But she didn't get up there and say, I'm curious because obviously we want everyone to feel safe and we want everyone, but where do I fit in? It was, how do I keep boys out of our bathrooms?
Yeah.
That's what it was. And I was like, that's a shift. 3 years ago, no, that was, even if she felt that way, she would have been very careful on how she articulated it, lest
they
she
would
get in
tell her
trouble.
she was a bigot and then she needed counseling to get past her bigotry.
Oh, and keep in mind, her school board still will. In Albemarle County, Victoria Cobb, head of the Family Foundation, was going to come and speak on this topic, and they banned her from coming to speak. And one of the members of the Albemarle School Board talked about how horrendous and horrific it was that they would dare allow Victoria Cobb to come and speak to their students. And then this was because they were going to talk about transgenderism and things of that nature. Well, this is overly sexualized. You have an LGBTQ club at the same high school that meets regularly, but they can't have one speaker to come in and talk about this particular issue. So understand that this girl was not standing up because there's been some drastic shift within the political climate in Albemarle County. She was standing up in opposition to the existing political framework that exists in that county. That is a major shift. I think a positive one.